In the glittering halls of Mount Olympus, where gods wage epic battles and weave grand tales of adventure, one goddess stands apart. While Zeus hurls thunderbolts and Poseidon stirs storms, she quietly maintains the force that holds both divine and mortal worlds together. This is the story of Hestia, the forgotten first child of Kronos, the goddess who turned down marriage proposals from both Apollo and Poseidon, and whose power was so crucial that even Zeus couldn't rule without her. Most people have never heard her story, yet in ancient times, she received the first and last offering at every sacrifice. Without her blessing, the gods themselves couldn't receive their offerings. Today, we're diving deep into everything you need to know about this fascinating goddess, from her origins to her modern relevance, and why she might be more important now than ever before. Prepare for a journey into the heart of Greek mythology, where we'll discover why the most essential power isn't in grand displays or epic battles, but in the quiet moments that bind us together. Imagine being eaten alive by your own father. That's how Hestia's story begins, and it's far from a gentle start for the goddess of hearth and home. As the firstborn of the Titans Kronos and Rhea, she was also the first to be swallowed whole by her paranoid father. A prophecy had warned Kronos that his children would overthrow him, just as he had overthrown his own father, Uranus. His solution? Swallow each child whole at birth. But here's where things get interesting. While this experience would traumatize most beings, it shaped Hestia into something extraordinary. For years, she kept her younger siblings alive inside Kronos' stomach, maintaining what would later become her symbol of power, the eternal flame. In that darkness, she discovered that even in the most hopeless places, a small flame could provide both light and hope. Think about that for a moment. While other gods emerged from this ordeal with vengeance in their hearts, Hestia found her purpose. When Zeus finally freed his siblings by tricking Kronos into drinking a potion that made him regurgitate his children, Hestia was the last to emerge, technically making her both the oldest and youngest of her siblings. But she didn't emerge bitter or vengeful. Instead, she came out with a profound understanding of what truly matters: the power of home, hearth, and family. This experience would shape not just her destiny, but the future of both gods and mortals alike. In many ways, her time in Kronos' stomach was a metaphor for her later role, protecting and nurturing others from within, maintaining warmth and hope in the darkest places. Let's explore what made Hestia truly unique among the Olympians. While other gods claimed dominion over seas and skies, Hestia chose something far more fundamental: the hearth, the home, and the sacred flame that brought civilization itself into being. Her powers included control over all fire used in sacrifices to the gods, blessing and protection of homes and families, authority over hospitality and domestic harmony, the ability to make any space sacred through her presence, power to grant peace and stability to households, and control over the central hearths of every city-state. But here's what makes her truly powerful. While other gods needed temples and constant worship, Hestia was present in every home, every hearth, and every flame. Every time a family gathered for a meal, they honored her. Every sacred fire in every temple burned through her power. She received the first offering at every sacrifice, and without her blessing, the gods themselves couldn't receive their offerings. Think about the implications of this for a moment. In a world where gods competed for worship and attention, Hestia was quietly present in every aspect of daily life. She didn't need grand temples or elaborate festivals. She was there in the warmth of every home, in the cooking of every meal, in the gathering of every family. The sacred flame of Hestia wasn't just any fire. It was the heart of Greek civilization itself. Every city had a public hearth dedicated to her, where the sacred flame burned eternally. If it ever went out, all official acts would cease until it was relit from another city's flame. When Greek colonists set out to establish new settlements, they would carry fire from their mother city's hearth, ensuring that their new home remained connected to their origins. This wasn't merely tradition. It was a vital lifeline connecting communities across the ancient world. The flame had to be maintained with specific rituals and could only be rekindled through traditional methods, usually involving friction or focused sunlight. much like the modern Olympic torch. In households, the hearth was more than just a source of warmth and cooking fire. It was the sacred center of domestic life, where families would gather to share meals, tell stories, and make offerings to the gods. The hearth fire was never allowed to go out completely, as it represented the continuous presence of Hestia and her protection over the household. Despite being one of the original 6 Olympians, Hestia faced unique challenges. Both Apollo and Poseidon, 2 of the most powerful gods, sought her hand in marriage. The entire pantheon waited with bated breath. Such unions could have created an unbeatable divine power. But Hestia did something unprecedented. She refused them both. Swearing an oath of eternal virginity to Zeus, she chose independence over power alliances. This wasn't just a personal choice. It was a statement about the nature of true power. In return, Zeus granted her the highest honors, the first offering at every sacrifice, and a place in every home and temple across the Greek world. Her relationship with her fellow Olympians was unique. While others schemed and fought, Hestia remained neutral, focusing on maintaining harmony. She was one of the few deities Zeus never challenged or threatened, recognizing that without her, the very fabric of divine mortal relations would unravel. The worship of Hestia was unlike that of any other Greek deity. While gods like Apollo and Athena had grand temples and spectacular festivals, Hestia's worship was woven into the fabric of daily life. Every meal began and ended with an offering to her. Every important oath was sworn by her flame. Every guest was welcomed in her name. The Greeks understood something profound about Hestia's power. It didn't require grand gestures or elaborate ceremonies. Her strength lay in the simple, daily acts that bound communities together. A portion of every sacrifice, no matter which god it was intended for, belonged to her. Wine was poured in her honor at the beginning and end of every feast. In the rare temples dedicated solely to her, there were usually no statues or images. Instead, there was only the eternal flame, representing her constant presence. This absence of representation wasn't a sign of disrespect, quite the opposite. The Greeks believed Hestia was too fundamental to be captured in mere stone or bronze. When we look at Hestia's Roman counterpart, Vesta, we see how her influence grew even stronger. The Romans established an entire order of priestesses, the Vestal Virgins, dedicated to maintaining her eternal flame. These women were so respected that they could pardon condemned criminals simply by touching them, and their word in legal matters was considered absolutely trustworthy, no oath required. The Vestal Virgins were chosen from noble families between the ages of 6 and 10, and they served for 30 years. Their primary duty was to keep Vesta's sacred flame burning, as Romans believed this flame was connected to the very survival of their civilization. If it went out, it was considered a terrible omen that required elaborate purification rituals. The Temple of Vesta in Rome was one of the most important religious sites in the entire empire. Unlike other Roman temples, it was round, symbolizing the hearth of the state itself. The sacred flame burned there continuously for over 1,000 years, tended by generations of Vestals. The archaeological record reveals fascinating insights into Hestia's worship. Unlike other deities, whose temples were grand structures filled with statues and offerings, Hestia's presence is found in the humble hearths of countless homes across the ancient world. Archaeologists have discovered that Greek houses were actually designed around the hearth, with the main room, called the oikos, centered on this sacred space. In Delphi, often called the navel of the ancient world, archaeologists discovered a perpetually burning fire dedicated to Hestia. This eternal flame was maintained for centuries, marking the spiritual center of the Greek world. Similar evidence has been found in other major city-states, where public buildings featured central hearths that served both practical and religious purposes. The most remarkable archaeological discoveries come from Rome, where the House of the Vestals still stands in the Forum. This massive complex, where the Vestal Virgins lived and tended Vesta's flame, provides tangible evidence of how seriously ancient societies took their obligations to the goddess of the hearth. Throughout ancient literature, Hestia appears not as a character in dramatic tales, but as a fundamental force of stability and order. The ancient Greek poet Hesiod described her as Hestia, you who tend the holy house of Apollo the far shooter at sacred Pytho. From your locks the soft oil ever drips down. This image of the eternally nurturing presence perfectly captures her role. In the Homeric hymns, she is celebrated as the one without whom mortals hold no feast. The Roman poet Ovid wrote extensively about the festivals of Vesta, describing how even the hardiest warriors would walk barefoot to her temple during her festival days. These literary references show us that the ancients saw Hestia not just as a goddess, but as the very foundation of civilized life. In our modern world of digital connections and virtual meetings, Hestia's message resonates more powerfully than ever. The concept of hearth and home remains a powerful symbol, even in an age where actual hearths are rare. Every time we speak of making a house a home, we're echoing ancient wisdom about the importance of sacred domestic space. The rise of remote work and digital nomadism has paradoxically increased our need for what Hestia represents: a center, a place of belonging, a space where we can truly be ourselves. The modern trend of hygge, the Danish concept of cozy contentment and well-being, bears striking similarities to the ancient Greek understanding of Hestia's blessings. In an era where many feel increasingly disconnected, Hestia's emphasis on the sacred nature of gathering spaces and shared meals offers valuable wisdom. The simple act of gathering around a table for a shared meal, something the Greeks would have seen as inherently sacred, becomes a powerful act of connection in our fragmented world. Hestia's story teaches us that true power doesn't always roar like thunder or crash like waves. Sometimes it whispers in the quiet moments when we come together, in the warmth of a shared meal, in the comfort of being home. As we've seen throughout this journey, she may not be the most famous Olympian, but she might just be the most important. Her influence touches every aspect of human civilization, from the development of communities to the sacred nature of hospitality. While other gods demanded attention through dramatic displays of power, Hestia's quiet presence in every home and hearth made her an indispensable part of both divine and mortal worlds. So the next time you gather with loved ones around a table, light a candle, or simply enjoy the comfort of home, remember Hestia, the goddess who taught us that the greatest power lies not in grand displays of force, but in the quiet moments that bind us together. Thank you for joining us on this exploration of one of mythology's most fascinating figures. If you enjoyed this deep dive into ancient wisdom, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below.